Hey everyone, I'm using a throwaway account for reasons that will become clear soon. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am. I guess I just need to get this off my chest and maybe get some advice. If you've got a few minutes, I'd appreciate you hearing me out. I'm a 58-year-old man, married to my wife Jane, 57F, for 27 years. We've had our ups and downs like any couple, but I always thought we were solid. We raised 2 kids together who are now in their mid-20s, off living their own lives. Our life seemed picture perfect from the outside, and for the most part, I believed it was. Then came the diagnosis. About 6 months ago, I started feeling off. Nothing major at first, just a little fatigue, a persistent cough that wouldn't go away, and some weight loss that I chalked up to stress. I finally went to the doctor after Jane insisted, and after a series of tests, I got the news I was dreading: stage 4 pancreatic cancer. They told me it's terminal, and I probably have less than a year left. I was devastated, of course, but after the initial shock, I made my peace with it. I've lived a good life, and I want to spend whatever time I have left surrounded by my loved ones, making the most of every moment. But I didn't tell Jane right away. I didn't want to worry her until I had all the answers, so I kept it to myself while I sorted through my emotions and made some plans. Then everything changed. About 2 weeks ago, I decided it was time to have the talk with Jane. I left work early, hoping to surprise her and have a heartfelt conversation about my diagnosis and our future. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed a car that looked very familiar parked there. It was the flashy, expensive car of one of my business partners, Dave. He's a widower in his late 50s, a guy I thought I could trust. My gut told me something was off, but I ignored it and went inside. Our home security system has cameras, but Jane had put them in privacy mode, which was unusual. My heart started pounding as I made my way through the house. I called out for Jane, but there was no response. Finally, I heard faint laughter and music coming from upstairs. I crept up the stairs and saw our bedroom door slightly ajar. What I saw next shattered my world. There they were, Jane and Dave, in our bed, wrapped up in each other. It was like a scene out of a bad movie. I felt a wave of emotions: rage, betrayal, sadness, disbelief. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, unable to move. When I finally snapped out of it, I did the only thing I could think of. I pulled out my phone and started recording. The look on their faces when they realized I was standing there with a camera was one of pure shock. Jane scrambled to cover herself, and Dave started stammering, trying to explain. I didn't want to hear it. I told him to get out of my house and never come back. Jane was crying, saying it was a mistake, that she didn't know what she was thinking, but I couldn't look at her. I left the house and drove to our farm property. It's always been my sanctuary, a place where I could clear my head and find some peace. I opened up my laptop and reviewed the footage from the backup server I had set up years ago. There they were, cozying up in the living room, drinking wine, dancing, and eventually heading up to the bedroom. The microphone had even picked up their conversations and other sounds. I felt sick. I called my lawyer and explained everything. We went over my will, our prenup, and my options. I wanted to make sure Jane would be taken care of financially, but I also needed to protect my kids and grandkids from her betrayal. We started gathering evidence of the affair, and I began making plans for the inevitable confrontation. But I didn't want to do it right away. Christmas was coming up, and I wanted one last holiday with my family, without the drama. So I kept it to myself, plastered a smile on my face, and played the doting husband and father. We spent a week at the farm, cutting down a tree, decorating, cooking, and celebrating together. It was a wonderful time, but every moment with Jane felt like a lie. After the holidays, I knew it was time to tell my kids and grandkids about my diagnosis. I didn't want to burden them during our last Christmas together. The kids took it hard, especially my daughter. She's always been a daddy's girl, and seeing her cry broke my heart. But they understood my decision not to fight the cancer. I wanted to spend my remaining time making memories, not hooked up to machines in a hospital. Once the dust settled from that bombshell, it was time to confront Jane. I chose our regular date night at our favorite restaurant. We had a corner table, away from the hustle and bustle. I had already arranged everything with our server and my lawyer. As we finished dessert, I started the conversation. "Jane, do you love me?" I asked, my voice trembling. She looked confused. Of course I do. Why would you ask that? Because I know about you and Dave, I said, watching the color drain from her face. Her eyes widened. What are you talking about? I came home early a couple of weeks ago. I saw you with him, in our bed, I said, my voice cracking. I have it all on video. She started crying, trying to explain, to apologize. But I held up my hand. Stop, just stop, I don't want to hear it. I called over our server and my lawyer, who handed me a briefcase and a folder. I signed the letter asking Jane not to contact me or my family, and gave it to her along with the divorce papers. She was in shock, unable to say anything. I told her she could stay in our house in town until I passed, but after that, everything would go to the kids. I didn't want her to have anything to do with my estate. As I left the restaurant, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with overwhelming sadness. The woman I had loved for nearly 3 decades had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I had lost my partner, my confidant, and my best friend. But I knew I had to move on, to focus on the time I had left with my kids and grandkids. I spent the next few days at the farm trying to process everything. Jane tried to contact me, but I ignored her calls and messages. She even showed up at the farm once, but I had my daughter send her away. I didn't want to see her, to hear her excuses. I needed to focus on my family and my health. In the meantime, I continued to spend time with my kids and grandkids, making memories that I hope will last them a lifetime. We went on small trips, played games, and just enjoyed each other's company. I also started writing letters to each of them, something they could hold on to after I'm gone. Those letters were the hardest thing I've ever done, but I wanted them to know how much I loved them and how proud I was of each of them. As for Jane, she moved out of our house in town and into an apartment. I heard from mutual friends that Dave had broken things off with her once he realized I was no longer in the picture. She was alone, dealing with the consequences of her actions. I didn't feel sorry for her. She made her choices, and now she had to live with them. To all of you reading this, thank you for letting me share my story. It feels good to get it out there, to have someone listen. If you've got any advice or words of wisdom, I'd appreciate it. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm taking it one day at a time, trying to find peace in the time I have left. Hey everyone, thanks for all the support and advice after my last post. It really helped to hear from others who've gone through similar things or just to get a different perspective. I'm back with an update, and it's a long one, so grab a coffee or whatever you like and settle in. So where do I start? I guess I'll pick up right where I left off. After I served Jane the divorce papers and moved out to the farm, things were strange. It's weird to go from sharing your life with someone for nearly 30 years to cutting them out completely. But honestly, the farm has always been my sanctuary, and it's been a blessing to have that space to clear my head. My kids, bless their hearts, have been incredible through all of this. My daughter especially has been my rock. She's been coming out to the farm as much as she can, bringing my grandkids and just trying to keep things as normal as possible. My son's been great too, but he lives a bit further away, so it's harder for him to visit as often. Still, we talk on the phone almost every day. About a week after I moved to the farm, Jane tried to visit me. She showed up unannounced, looking like she'd been crying for days. I guess reality had finally hit her. I didn't want to see her, but my daughter convinced me to at least hear her out. So we sat on the porch, and she started with the apologies. She said all the things you'd expect. She was sorry, she made a mistake, she still loved me, blah blah blah. It was hard to sit there and listen, but I did. Why, Jane? Why did you do it? I finally asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I don't know, she said, tears streaming down her face. I was feeling neglected and Dave was there, and it just happened. I'm so sorry. Neglected. That word hit me like a punch to the gut. Yes, we'd had our rough patches, and yes, I'd been working a lot, especially after my diagnosis, trying to make sure everything was in order for when I'm gone. But neglected? I couldn't wrap my head around it. You could have talked to me, I said, my voice breaking. We could have worked on it together, but you went to him. You betrayed me. She kept crying, kept apologizing, but I couldn't take it anymore. I told her to leave and not come back. I needed space, and I needed to focus on my own healing, both physically and emotionally. For the next few weeks, I threw myself into work on the farm. There's something therapeutic about manual labor, about feeling the earth in your hands and seeing the results of your hard work. It gave me a sense of control, something I desperately needed after everything that happened. I also spent a lot of time with my grandkids. Kids have this amazing ability to bring joy and light into the darkest of times. We'd go fishing, have picnics, and just enjoy each other's company. Those moments were priceless, and they gave me a reason to keep pushing forward. I continued seeing my therapist, too. She's been a godsend, helping me navigate all these complicated emotions. One thing she suggested was writing letters to Jane, not to send, but to get my feelings out. It sounded a bit hokey at first, but I gave it a try. And you know what? It helped. Writing down everything I wanted to say to her, all the anger, the hurt, the love, and the loss, was like lifting a weight off my shoulders. During this time, I also had to make some tough decisions about my health. The doctors offered treatments that might extend my life by a few months, but the side effects were brutal. After talking it over with my kids, I decided against it. I want quality over quantity. I want to spend my remaining time making memories, not being bedridden and sick from treatments that won't cure me. One of the hardest parts was breaking the news to the extended family and our friends. Most of them had no idea about my diagnosis or the affair. The reactions were a mixed bag: shock, sadness, anger. My sister, who's always been close to Jane, took it especially hard. She couldn't believe that Jane would do something like this, and it's caused a rift between them. As for our friends, well, you really find out who's loyal when things go south. Some have stuck by me, offering support and kindness, while others have distanced themselves, unsure of how to handle the situation. Through all of this, one person who has been an unexpected pillar of support is Carol, Jane's old friend. Yeah, I know it sounds crazy. Carol and I have always gotten along, but we were never particularly close. After the affair came to light, she reached out, offering to help in any way she could. At first, I was hesitant, unsure of her motives, but she's been genuinely kind and supportive. She even offered to keep an eye on Jane, to make sure she's okay, which I appreciated, even if I couldn't bring myself to care too much about Jane's well-being at the time. One day, Carol came by the farm with a homemade casserole and a bottle of wine. We sat on the porch eating and talking. It was the first time in a long while that I felt a sense of normalcy. We talked about everything: life, love, betrayal, and the future. She told me about her own divorce years ago and how she got through it, and it gave me hope that maybe, just maybe, I could find some semblance of peace and happiness again. Carol's visits became more frequent. She'd bring over dinner, and we'd watch the sunset together, talking about everything and nothing. It was nice to have someone to share those moments with, someone who understood what I was going through. I didn't expect it, but we became close. Closer than I ever thought possible given the circumstances. Around this time, I started having more serious conversations with my kids about my will and the future. I wanted to make sure everything was in order, that they wouldn't have to worry about anything once I was gone. It was hard, talking about these things, but it was necessary. I wanted to leave them with as little burden as possible. One afternoon, while going through some paperwork, my daughter found an old photo album. We spent hours going through it, laughing and reminiscing about the good times. It was bittersweet, seeing all those memories and knowing that my time to make new ones was running out. But it was also healing, a reminder of all the love and joy that had filled my life. Then came the news that shook me to my core. Jane showed up at the farm again, this time with a different kind of bombshell. She was pregnant. My initial reaction was disbelief, then anger. How could she? But as the shock wore off, I realized it didn't matter. Whether the child was mine or Dave's was irrelevant. I told her to get a paternity test and left it at that. Jane tried to apologize again, to explain, but I couldn't hear it. I was too hurt, too angry. I told her to leave, to sort out her life, and to let me be. I needed to focus on myself, on my kids and grandkids, and on the time I had left. A few days later, Carol came by and found me in a particularly dark mood. She sat with me, letting me vent, and then she did something I'll never forget. She looked me in the eyes and said, "You deserve to be happy even now. Don't let Jane's mistakes steal that from you." Her words hit me hard. I realized I'd been so focused on the betrayal and the impending end that I'd forgotten to live. Carol was right. I needed to find joy, to cherish the moments I had left, not wallow in what could have been. So, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let Jane's actions define my remaining time. I was going to live, to love, and to find peace. I started planning small trips with my kids and grandkids, little adventures that we could enjoy together. We went fishing, had picnics, and even took a short road trip to the mountains. Those moments were precious, filled with laughter and love, and through it all, Carol was there. We grew even closer, and I realized that she had become an integral part of my life. She brought light into the darkest of times, and for that, I was eternally grateful. So here I am, taking it one day at a time, trying to find joy in the little things. My health is declining, and I know I don't have much time left, but I'm at peace with that. I'm surrounded by love, by family and friends who care about me. And for now, that's enough. To everyone who's read this far, thank you. Your support and advice mean more than you know. If you have any thoughts or words of wisdom, I'd love to hear them. This journey has been a roller coaster, but I'm grateful for every moment, every memory, and every bit of kindness that's come my way. I'm back with what might be my final update, and I've got a lot to share, so get comfortable. Life has been a whirlwind these past few months. My health is declining more rapidly than I expected, and it's been a challenge to keep up with everything. But I've made it my mission to spend as much quality time with my family as possible. My kids and grandkids have been my lifeline, and they've made every day worth fighting for. First, let me tell you about Jane. After the pregnancy bombshell, I demanded a paternity test. It felt like the longest wait of my life, but when the results came back, it turned out the baby wasn't mine. It was Dave's. This revelation was like a final nail in the coffin of our relationship. Jane was devastated, of course, but honestly, I felt a strange sense of relief. It was the closure I needed to fully let go and move on. Jane moved out of our house and into a small apartment in town. She's been trying to rebuild her life, but from what I've heard through mutual friends, it hasn't been easy. Dave predictably bailed on her as soon as he found out about the pregnancy. She's alone, dealing with the consequences of her actions. Part of me feels for her, but another part of me knows she made her bed, and now she has to lie in it. After that, I had to focus on myself and my own healing. Carol has been an incredible support through all of this. We've grown closer than I ever thought possible. She's been there for me in ways I can't even describe, bringing meals, spending time with me, and just being a comforting presence. It's funny how life works sometimes. You lose one relationship, and another one blooms in its place. Carol and I have spent countless hours talking about everything. My illness, my kids, my fears, and even my regrets. She's shared her own stories of heartache and loss, and it's brought us closer together. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, she turned to me and said, "You've got so much love to give even now. Don't waste it on anger and regret." Her words stuck with me. I realized that I didn't want to spend my remaining time dwelling on what I'd lost. I wanted to focus on what I still had, a loving family, supportive friends, and the chance to make the most of every day. So that's what I did. I started making a bucket list of sorts, filled with things I wanted to do with my kids and grandkids. We went on small trips, had family game nights, and even took a weekend trip to the beach. Those moments were filled with laughter, love, and memories that I hope will last long after I'm gone. One of the most special trips was when we went camping. My son and daughter helped set up the tents, and we spent the evenings around the campfire, roasting marshmallows and telling stories. It reminded me of when they were little, and we'd go on family camping trips. Those memories are some of the happiest of my life, and it felt amazing to recreate them one last time. Through all of this, my therapist has been a tremendous help. She encouraged me to keep writing letters to my family, and I've been doing just that. Each letter is a piece of my heart, filled with love, advice, and memories. Writing them has been both cathartic and heartbreaking, knowing that these words will be my final gift to them. One day, Carol brought up the idea of having a living wake. At first, I was taken aback. The thought of celebrating my life while I was still here felt strange, but the more we talked about it, the more it made sense. I wanted to be surrounded by the people I loved, to share stories and laughter, and to say goodbye on my own terms. So we planned it. We invited close friends and family to the farm for a weekend of celebration. There was good food, music, and plenty of stories. We laughed, cried, and reminisced about the good times. It was a beautiful, bittersweet event, and I'm so grateful to everyone who came and made it so special. During the wake, I had a chance to talk to each of my kids individually. My daughter and I sat by the lake, and I told her how proud I was of the woman she's become. She's strong, kind, and resilient, and I know she'll be okay after I'm gone. My son and I took a walk through the fields, and I told him how much I admired his dedication and hard work. He's going to be a fantastic father, and I know he'll take care of the family. Carol stayed by my side throughout the entire event. She was my rock, and I couldn't have done it without her. That night, as we sat on the porch, I thanked her for everything. She smiled and squeezed my hand, and in that moment I realized just how much she meant to me. I never expected to find love again, especially not in my final days. But there it was, unexpected and beautiful. As my health continued to decline, I found comfort in the routine we'd established. Carol moved in to help take care of me, and having her there made all the difference. She made sure I took my medication, cooked meals, and kept me company. We spent our days enjoying the simple pleasures, reading books, watching movies, and just being together. One of the hardest parts has been seeing the toll this is taking on my kids. They try to be strong for me, but I see the pain in their eyes. It breaks my heart to know that I'm leaving them, but I find solace in knowing they have each other and a strong support system. A few weeks ago, I had a conversation with my lawyer to finalize my will and make sure everything was in order. We talked about my estate, the farm, and how I wanted things handled after I'm gone. It was a difficult conversation, but it gave me peace of mind knowing that my kids would be taken care of. I also wrote a letter to Jane. I don't know if I'll ever send it, but I needed to get my thoughts out. In it, I told her how much she hurt me, but I also forgave her. Holding on to anger and resentment wasn't helping me, and I needed to let go. I wished her the best and hoped she could find happiness and redemption in her own way. One night, as Carol and I sat by the fire, I asked her a question that had been on my mind for a while. "Do you think you'll ever forgive Jane?" She looked thoughtful for a moment before answering. "I think so," she said softly. "In time. She made a terrible mistake, but I believe people can change, and holding on to anger doesn't help anyone." Her words resonated with me. Forgiveness is a powerful thing, and while it doesn't erase the pain, it helps to heal. I knew I had to forgive Jane for my own peace of mind, and I hoped that one day she could forgive herself too. As I write this, I know my time is running out. My body is weak, and I'm in pain more often than not, but I'm surrounded by love, and I'm grateful for every moment. Carol is here with me, holding my hand, and my kids are on their way to visit. I've made my peace with what's coming, and I'm ready. To everyone who's been following my story, thank you. Your support, advice, and kind words have meant the world to me. Life has thrown me some curveballs, but I found strength and love in the most unexpected places. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that even in the darkest times, there's always light to be found. So, to those of you reading this, cherish the moments with your loved ones. Tell them you love them every chance you get. Forgive, even when it's hard. And most importantly, live your life to the fullest, because you never know how much time you have left. I want to share how these final days have unfolded and leave you with a bit of advice I've gathered along the way. My health has declined significantly. I can feel my body getting weaker every day. Breathing is a struggle, and the pain is constant. But despite all that, I'm grateful for the time I've had. My family, especially my kids and grandkids, have been my anchors. Their love and support have given me strength. Carol has been a godsend. She's been by my side through it all, taking care of me, making sure I'm comfortable, and just being there. I never expected to find someone like her, especially not in these circumstances, but life has a funny way of surprising you. Her presence has been a balm to my soul. One of the most touching moments happened a few weeks ago. My kids organized a family gathering at the farm. They wanted to make sure I was surrounded by love and laughter in my final days. We set up a big tent in the yard, decorated with fairy lights and old family photos. It was beautiful. Seeing everyone together, sharing stories, laughing, and just enjoying each other's company was everything I could have hoped for. My grandkids ran around, playing games and filling the air with their joyous laughter. It was a perfect day, one that I will cherish forever. During the gathering, my daughter pulled me aside. She had a box in her hands, and she looked nervous. "Dad, I've been working on something for you," she said, her voice trembling. She opened the box to reveal a scrapbook. Each page was filled with photos, letters, and mementos from our life together. It was a timeline of our family, a testament to the love we've shared. "I wanted you to have this," she said, tears in her eyes, "so you can take these memories with you." I was overwhelmed. The scrapbook was a labor of love, and it captured the essence of our family. As I flipped through the pages, I saw pictures of our family vacations, birthday parties, and simple everyday moments that I had almost forgotten. It was the most beautiful gift I could have received. That night, after everyone had left, I sat with Carol on the porch, looking through the scrapbook again. We reminisced about the good times and talked about the future, her future. I wanted to make sure she would be okay after I was gone. "Carol, you've been my rock through all of this," I said, taking her hand. "I need to know that you'll take care of yourself after I'm gone. You deserve to be happy." She smiled, her eyes filled with tears. "I promise I'll take care of myself, and I'll keep your memory alive. You've given me so much, and I'll never forget you." We sat in silence for a while, just holding hands and watching the stars. It was one of those moments where words aren't necessary, where you just feel connected on a deeper level. In the days that followed, my condition continued to worsen. Hospice care was brought in to help manage my pain and make me as comfortable as possible. My kids took turns staying with me, making sure I was never alone. Their presence was a comfort, a reminder of the love that surrounded me. One evening, my son and I were sitting together, watching the sunset. He looked at me, his eyes filled with sadness and love. "Dad, I don't know how I'm going to do this without you," he said, his voice breaking. I reached out and took his hand. "You're stronger than you think, and you have an incredible family to support you. Remember the lessons I've taught you, and know that I'll always be with you in spirit." We sat there in silence, watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink. It was a beautiful moment, one that I hope will give him strength in the days to come. As I write this, I'm in my final days. The pain is intense, but I'm at peace. I've said my goodbyes, and I've made sure that my family will be taken care of. I've left letters for each of them, sharing my love, my advice, and my hopes for their future. To my daughter, I told her how proud I am of the woman she's become. I reminded her to stay strong and to keep chasing her dreams. I shared memories of her childhood, the times we laughed together, and the lessons I tried to teach her. I told her that she is my heart, and I will always be with her. To my son, I shared my admiration for his resilience and his dedication to our family. I encouraged him to keep being the wonderful father and husband he is. I reminded him of our fishing trips, our late-night talks, and the bond we've shared. I told him that he is my rock, and I'll always be watching over him. To my grandkids, I wrote about the joy they've brought into my life. I encouraged them to follow their passions, to be kind, and to always stay curious. I shared funny stories and little bits of wisdom, hoping to leave a lasting impression on their young hearts. And to Carol, I left a letter expressing my deepest gratitude. I thanked her for her love, her strength, and her unwavering support. I told her that she brought light into my darkest days, and I will forever be grateful for the time we've shared. I encouraged her to find happiness, to live her life fully, and to never forget that she is loved. As I come to the end of this journey, I want to leave you all with a few thoughts. Life is unpredictable, and it's often filled with challenges and heartache. But it's also filled with love, joy, and moments that take your breath away. Cherish those moments. Hold your loved ones close and never take them for granted. Forgiveness is powerful. It's not always easy, but it can bring peace to your heart. Let go of anger and resentment, and make room for love and healing. Live your life fully. Don't wait for tomorrow to do the things you love. Take risks, follow your dreams, and make the most of every day. And finally, love deeply. Love your family, your friends, and yourself. Love is what gives life meaning, and it's the legacy we leave behind. To everyone who's been a part of my story, thank you. Your support, your advice, and your kindness have meant more than I can express. I'm grateful for each and every one of you. Goodbye for now. I hope my story has touched you in some way, and I hope you'll carry a piece of it with you. Remember to live, love, and cherish every moment.